No one understood the order of the Korean Mafia boss's mute mom until a black waitress stepped in and translated her signs. The Friday evening rush at Lotus Garden hit like a wave, bodies pressing through the door, voices overlapping in English, Korean, Spanish, the air thick with the smell of garlic and gochujang. Carla Bennett moved through the chaos with practiced efficiency, balancing 3 plates on her left arm while her right hand grabbed water pitchers. 6 years of waitressing had taught her to read a room in seconds. Who needed refills? Who was ready to order? Who was about to complain? But nothing prepared her for the sound that cut through the dinner noise. Not a sound exactly. The absence of one. A frustrated grunt, raw and helpless, coming from booth 7 near the kitchen. Carla's head snapped toward it, instinct pulling her attention, even as she set down bulgogi in Yafkaya table 4. An elderly Korean woman sat alone in the booth, hands moving in sharp, agitated gestures. Her face was flushed with embarrassment and anger, tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. Standing beside her was Jeremy, the new server, barely 19 and clearly panicking. I can't, ma'am, I don't understand. Jeremy stammered, his voice climbing higher. Can you just write it down? Or maybe point to the menu? The woman's hands moved faster, more desperately. Her mouth opened, but only that same frustrated sound emerged, the vocalization of someone whose voice had been stolen by circumstance or birth. Jeremy backed away slightly and Carla saw it. The flash of fear mixed with disgust that people always tried to hide when confronted with disability. Jeremy, I've got this, Carla said, already moving toward the booth. She set her tray on the adjacent table and slid into the seat across from the woman, whose hands had frozen mid-gesture, eyes wide with surprise at Carla's approach. The woman was perhaps 70, with silver hair pulled into a neat bun and wearing a traditional hanbok in deep navy silk. Formal, expensive, the kind worn for important occasions. Her hands were elegant despite the trembling, nails perfectly manicured. But it was her eyes that caught Carla. Sharp, intelligent, desperate to be understood. Carla raised her own hands slowly, fingers forming careful shapes. Hello, I'm Carla. Are you okay? The woman's entire body went still. Her mouth opened slightly, shock replacing frustration. Then her hands flew up in response, movements so fast Carla almost couldn't follow. You sign? You know Korean Sign Language? No, American Sign Language, Carla signed back. But I can try to understand. Please go slow. The relief that flooded the woman's face was heartbreaking. Her hands moved again, slower this time, and Carla caught maybe 60%, enough to piece together meaning. Something about food allergies, shellfish, specific preparation. The woman pulled out a small card with Korean text, pointing urgently. One moment, Carla signed. She flagged down Min Seo, one of the Korean servers who'd worked at Lotus Garden for years. Can you read this? She has severe shellfish allergies and needs specific dishes prepared a certain way. Min Seo looked at the card, then at the woman, recognition flickering across her face. Wait, this is... She stopped herself, switching to Korean as she bowed deeply, speaking rapidly. But the elderly woman just gestured helplessly at her own throat, then to Carla. She can't hear you either, Carla said gently. She's deaf and mute. Let me translate. She turned back to the woman, whose hands were already moving. Tell her I want the bibimbap, but no seafood in the broth. Vegetable stock only. And the kimchi. Ask if it's the old batch or new. The old batch has sayujeon, fermented shrimp. Carla translated to Min Seo, who nodded enthusiastically and disappeared toward the kitchen. The woman's hands moved again. Thank you. No one here understands. I come every week, and every week it's the same struggle. They treat me like I'm stupid. You're not stupid, Carla signed firmly. They're just not educated. My brother is mute. I learned sign language when I was 8 years old. It's their failure, not yours. The woman's eyes filled with tears again, but different ones now. Her hands trembled as she signed. Your brother is lucky to have you. What's his name? Marcus. Carla smiled. He's a software engineer now. Graduated from UCLA. He taught me that being mute doesn't mean being silent. You just speak in a different way. Wise, the woman signed. Then her expression shifted, became almost mischievous. I'm Park Yun-hee, and I think you might be an answer to prayer I didn't know I was praying. Before Carla could ask what that meant, Min Seo returned with an older Korean man in a chef's coat, the head chef, judging by the way other kitchen staff deferred to him. He bowed to Mrs. Park, speaking in Korean with clear respect, but again the woman gestured to Carla. She needs you to translate, Min Seo said, looking uncomfortable. This is complicated. The chef wants to confirm everything twice because Mrs. Park is important. Important how? Carla asked, but Min Seo just shook her head. Carla turned back to Mrs. Park. The chef wants to confirm your order personally. He's concerned about the allergies. What followed was a 10-minute conversation about ingredients, preparation methods, and cooking techniques that Carla translated between sign language and spoken Korean through Min Seo. Mrs. Park's hands moved with increasing animation, clearly passionate about food. The chef nodded, asking detailed questions, his initial nervousness giving way to professional respect as he realized Mrs. Park knew her cuisine. When it was finally settled and the chef returned to the kitchen, Mrs. Park signed to Carla. You translated perfectly, even the technical terms. Most interpreters would have struggled. My brother loves cooking shows, Carla signed with a slight smile. I learned a lot of food vocabulary watching with him. Iron Chef was his favorite. Mrs. Park laughed, a silent laugh, shoulders shaking, eyes crinkling with genuine joy. Then she gestured for Carla to sit, which Carla did, aware that she had 4 other tables waiting, but somehow unable to pull away from this woman's magnetic presence. How long have you worked here, Mrs. Park asked. 3 months. I moved to LA from Oakland last year. Needed a fresh start. Running from something or toward something? The question was too perceptive. Carla hesitated, then signed honestly. Both. Left a bad relationship. Came here hoping to save money for nursing school. But LA is expensive, and 3 months in, I'm barely breaking even. Nursing school, Mrs. Park signed thoughtfully. You want to help people, I can see that. You didn't have to stop for me. The other server had already given up, and you were busy. Why did you help? Because I've watched my brother be ignored too many times, Carla signed, feeling the familiar anger rise. Watch people talk over him, around him, about him like he wasn't there. And I promised myself I'd never be one of those people, that I'd always stop, always listen, always see. Mrs. Park's expression softened into something almost maternal. She reached across the table and took Carla's hand, a gesture of such warmth and approval that Carla felt unexpected tears prick her eyes. My son needs someone like you, Mrs. Park signed with her free hand. Someone who sees past surfaces, who understands that different doesn't mean less. Your son? He's coming to meet me for dinner. Late, as always. Too much work, too much responsibility. Mrs. Park's signs carried affectionate exasperation. He's a good man, but lonely. He doesn't trust easily, doesn't let people close. But you, I think he might listen to you. Carla felt a flutter of unease. This felt like matchmaking, and she'd had enough of being set up by well-meaning people who thought a relationship would fix her life. Mrs. Park, I appreciate that, but I'm really not looking for... The restaurant's front door opened with enough force to make people turn. The Friday dinner noise seemed to dim, conversations dropping in volume as attention shifted toward the entrance. Carla turned to look and felt her breath catch. The man who entered was striking in a way that made people stare. Korean, late 20s, tall with broad shoulders filling out a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Carla's car. But it wasn't just his looks or his clothes. It was the way he carried himself. The quiet authority of someone who expected the world to rearrange itself around him. His dark eyes swept the restaurant with the calculation of someone always assessing threats, always planning exits. 2 men followed him, clearly security. They fanned out, taking positions near the door in the kitchen entrance. The new server, Jeremy, nearly dropped a tray. Min Seo bowed so deeply Carla thought she might tip over. And the restaurant manager appeared from the back office. practically sprinting over to greet the newcomer with stammering deference. "Mr. Park, we weren't expecting such an honor. Please, your usual table." The man, Mr. Park, waved him off with barely a glance, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on booth 7, on his mother. His severe expression softened fractionally, and he moved toward them with purposeful strides. Carla started to slide out of the booth, suddenly aware she was sitting at what was clearly a family dinner. But Mrs. Park's hand tightened on hers, holding her in place. The elderly woman's other hand moved in quick signs. "Stay. This is important." Mr. Park reached the booth and stopped, his eyes moving from his mother to Carla with undisguised surprise. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Sharp features, a thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow, eyes that seemed to see through every defense Carla had built. He spoke in Korean, voice deep and controlled, but Mrs. Park just gestured to Carla. "She says she needs me to translate," Carla said, finding her voice despite her racing heart. "Your mother is deaf and mute. I was helping her order." Something flickered in Mr. Park's eyes. Surprise, then assessment, then something else she couldn't quite read. He signed then, movements sharp and economical. "You know sign language?" "Yes," Carla signed back, surprised he was fluent. "Your mother needed help. The staff didn't understand." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He turned to the manager who was hovering nearby and said something in Korean that made the man go pale and start apologizing profusely. Then Mr. Park slid into the booth next to his mother, across from Carla, his attention fully on her now. "I'm Park Soo-jin," he signed. "This is my restaurant." Carla's stomach dropped. This was her boss, the owner she'd never met, who everyone spoke about in hushed tones, who apparently visited so rarely that his appearance caused this level of disruption. "I'm Carla Bennett. I work here. I didn't realize. How long has my mother been coming here?" His signs were precise, controlled, but Carla could see tension in the set of his shoulders. Mrs. Park's hands moved, every Friday, for 6 months. "This is the first time anyone understood me without me having to bring your sister to translate." Soo-jin's expression went completely still, a blankness that Carla recognized, the mask people wore when they were feeling too much. He turned to Carla. "You translated her order, her allergy requirements, everything." "Yes. And you work here. How long?" 3 months. Why didn't anyone tell me my mother was struggling?" The question wasn't directed at Carla, but his eyes held hers, something dangerous and protective burning beneath the surface. "Maybe they didn't realize," Carla signed carefully, "or maybe they were afraid to tell you." That struck something. Soo-jin's eyes narrowed slightly, and Carla realized she'd said too much. Implied that he was someone people feared, which, given the way the entire staff was currently pretending not to stare while obviously staring, was probably accurate. Mrs. Park's hand came down on the table gently but firmly, pulling both their attention. "Stop interrogating her, Soo-jin. Carla helped me out of kindness, not obligation. The first person in months to treat me like a person instead of a problem." "That shouldn't have happened," Soo-jin signed, his movements sharp with barely controlled anger. "You shouldn't have to struggle in my own restaurant." "I wasn't struggling today," Mrs. Park signed back, her hands soft and warm. "Because of Carla. So instead of being angry, perhaps say thank you." Soo-jin looked at Carla again, and she felt pinned by his gaze. "Thank you," he signed finally, "for seeing my mother, for helping her. Anyone would have." "No." His signs were definitive. "They wouldn't." "You did. That means something." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Carla didn't want to name. Then Jeremy appeared, nervously holding Mrs. Park's bibimbap, and the spell broke. The meal that followed was surreal. Carla tried to excuse herself 3 times, but Mrs. Park insisted she stay, sit, eat something. She was too thin, working too hard. Soo-jin ordered half the menu, and Carla found herself sharing a table with her boss and his mother, translating their conversation. She learned that Mrs. Park had lost her hearing and voice to complications from measles when she was 5, that she'd raised 3 children, Soo Jin, a younger sister and a younger brother, while navigating a world that rarely accommodated her. That she was a master of Korean traditional arts, teaching embroidery and painting to other deaf students. That she was sharp-witted, funny, and had no patience for people who underestimated her. And Sujin, Carla learned he was brilliant and terrifying in equal measure. He asked Carla careful questions about her background, her brother, her sign language fluency. Never invasive, but thorough enough that Carla understood he was someone who gathered information like weapons. When she mentioned nursing school, his eyes sharpened with interest. Why nursing? He signed. Because I want to help people who get overlooked, Carla signed honestly. Disabled patients, deaf patients, people who get pushed to the side in medical settings because they are too complicated. My brother spent 3 days in a hospital once without anyone understanding him. No interpreter, no accommodations. Just doctors talking about him like he wasn't there. I want to change that. Something in Sujin's expression shifted. Not quite softness, but close. That's ambitious. Expensive. I'll find a way. How? Working here? The question would have sounded condescending from anyone else, but his hands moved with genuine curiosity. Carla shrugged. Eventually. I'm saving what I can. Might take a few years, but I've got time. Mrs. Park's hands cut into the conversation. Soo Jin, your father started with nothing. Less than nothing. This girl has determination and compassion. That's worth more than money. I know, Iyama. Soo Jin's signs were gentle when addressing his mother. I'm not criticizing, I'm assessing. Assessing for what? Possibility. He looked at Carla. I need someone I can trust working here. Someone who will tell me when things aren't right. Who will treat my mother and people like her with respect and competence. Would you be interested in a different position? Carla's heart hammered. Doing what? Manager. You'd oversee the entire front of house, including hiring and training. Make sure accessibility isn't an afterthought. Fair wage, benefits, tuition assistance if you're serious about school. I've been here 3 months. I'm not qualified. You helped my mother when no one else would. His signs were firm. You speak multiple languages, including one most people don't bother to learn. You're observant, compassionate, and you clearly care about doing things right. That's more qualification than most people walk through my door with. That's not how businesses work, Carla signed, trying to process this. You can't just promote someone because I can do whatever I want. It's my business. No arrogance in his signs, just statement of fact. The question is whether you're interested. Mrs. Park was watching them both with barely concealed delight. Carla looked between mother and son, feeling like she'd stumbled into something much larger than a simple dinner service. Can I think about it? Carla signed finally. Of course. Soo Jin pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. My private number. Call me when you decide, or if you need anything else. My mother clearly likes you, which is rare. That means you're under my protection now. Your protection? The phrasing was odd, almost old-fashioned. Something dark flickered across Soo Jin's face. I take care of the people who take care of my family. Remember that. Carla left the restaurant 2 hours later with her mind spinning, Mrs. Park's goodbye hug still warm on her shoulders, and Soo Jin's business card burning a hole in her pocket. The offer was insane. She'd been a waitress for 3 months and he wanted to make her manager? That didn't happen in real life, unless there was something else going on. Something the way people reacted to Soo Jin suggested, but no one said out loud. Her phone buzzed as she waited for the bus. A text from an unknown number. This is Park Soo Jin. Think seriously about my offer. My mother hasn't smiled that much in months. You did that. PSJ. Carla stared at the message, then at the card in her hand. Park Soo Jin, owner of Lotus Garden and, according to the whispered conversations she'd overheard from the Korean staff, a lot more than just a restaurateur. She should have been scared, should have recognized the danger. Instead, all she could think about was the way Soo Jin had signed to his mother. Gentle, patient, full of love. And the way he looked at Carla like she'd done something extraordinary instead of something basic. Her brother Marcus called as she got on the bus. She answered via video chat, signing, "You'll never believe what just happened." "Try me," Marcus signed back, his face filling the screen. At 29, he was handsome in an understated way, with their father's broad features and their mother's sharp eyes. "You look freaked out." Good freaked out or bad freaked out? I don't know yet. Carla filled him in on the entire evening. Mrs. Park, the translation, Sujin's sudden appearance and sudden job offer. Marcus listened without interrupting, but his expression grew increasingly concerned. "Carla, be careful," he signed when she finished. "Offers that good usually come with strings." "I know. But Marcus, you should have seen his mother. The relief when I signed to her, the gratitude. And Sujin, what about him? He was fluent. Perfect KSL. Most hearing people, even family members, never get that good. He clearly practiced, clearly cared enough to learn properly. That's good. But it doesn't mean you should jump into something without knowing what you're jumping into." Marcus's signs were careful. Research him. Find out who he really is. Because Carla, men who can offer jobs and protection in the same sentence, that's usually code for something. "I know," Carla signed. "I will, promise." But even as she made the promise, Carla knew she was going to say yes, because nursing school tuition was $40,000 a year, and she currently had $3,200 saved. Because the look in Mrs. Park's eyes when someone finally understood her was the same look she'd seen in Marcus's eyes 1,000 times. Because Soo Jin had looked at Carla like she mattered, like she'd done something worth noticing in a world that mostly overlooked her. And because somewhere in the last 2 hours, something had shifted. A door had opened to a world she'd never imagined stepping into. Dangerous, probably. Complicated, definitely. But also full of possibility. She texted Soo Jin before she could overthink it. "I accept. When do I start?" His response came immediately. "Monday, 9 a.m. Come to my office. We'll discuss details." "Thank you, Carla." No turning back now. Monday morning, Carla stood outside an office building in Koreatown that definitely wasn't Lotus Garden. The address Sujin had given her led to a sleek high-rise with security in the lobby and the kind of marble floors that echoed with wealth. She checked her phone 3 times to make sure she had the right place. "Miss Bennett?" A young Korean woman in a sharp suit appeared, bowing slightly. "I'm Park Ji-hai, Mr. Park's assistant. Please follow me." The elevator ride to the 20th floor was silent except for soft instrumental music. Ji-hai led Carla through a reception area that screamed money. Modern art, designer furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking LA. The door to Sujin's office was heavy wood, probably imported. Inside, Sujin sat behind a massive desk, but he rose immediately when Carla entered. Today he wore a navy suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone in a way that shouldn't have been attractive, but absolutely was. Behind him, the windows framed the city like a kingdom. "Thank you for coming," he signed, then gestured to a chair. "Please sit. Would you like coffee? Tea?" "I'm fine, thank you." Carla sat, hyper-aware of the way he moved around the desk to sit across from her, rather than behind it, equalizing the power dynamic, or appearing to. "Before we discuss the restaurant, I need to be honest with you about who I am," Sujin signed. His movements were measured, controlled. "What you might have heard, what you should know." "I'm listening. My family's business extends beyond restaurants. We have interests in various sectors, some legal, some existing in gray areas. I won't lie to you and say I'm just a businessman. I'm the head of an organization that some people fear, that some people call criminal." Carla's mouth went dry. She'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed was different. The Korean Mafia. That's the term, yes. No shame in his signs, just acknowledgement. "My father built an empire from nothing, using whatever means necessary. When he died 3 years ago, I took over. I've been working to make things more legitimate, but change takes time. And there are expectations, obligations." "Why are you telling me this?" Because you deserve to know what you're walking into. His eyes held hers. If you work for me, people will notice. Some will respect you, some will fear you, some will try to use you to get to me. I won't let that happen, but you need to know the risk. And if I say no, then you say no. No consequences. You keep your job at the restaurant. I'll recommend you for management positions elsewhere. And we part as friends. His hands moved with complete sincerity. But Carla, I hope you'll say yes. Because I meant what I said. My mother hasn't smiled like that in months. And I think you could do something important here. Like what? Make my businesses accessible. Truly accessible. Not just legally compliant, but welcoming. Sujin leaned forward. I have restaurants, import companies, real estate holdings. None of them serve the deaf community well. You could change that. Build something that honors people like my mother. Like your brother. That's ambitious. So is nursing school while working full-time and saving money you don't have. A slight smile. We're both ambitious. The question is whether we can be ambitious together. Carla studied him. This man who spoke in sign language and ran a criminal empire. Who loved his mother enough to learn her language fluently and commanded enough fear that staff members bowed when he entered. Who was offering her a chance to do something meaningful while also potentially putting her in danger. I want to say yes, she signed slowly, but I need to know more about what this job actually entails, about the risks, about what happens if things go wrong. Fair. Sujin stood, gesturing for her to follow. Let me show you something. He led her out of the office, down a hallway lined with what looked like conference rooms, to a door that required both a key card and fingerprint scanner. Inside was a room that took Carla's breath away. It was an accessibility center, computers with screen readers, height-adjustable desks, visual alert systems, and an entire wall dedicated to communication devices. In one corner, someone was teaching a small class in what looked like Korean Sign Language. This is our community outreach program, Sujin signed. We provide free technology and training to deaf and disabled members of the Korean community. Language classes, job training, legal assistance. My mother runs it. As if summoned, Mrs. Park emerged from the classroom, her face lighting up when she saw Carla. She signed rapidly. You came. Sujin said he offered you a position. Please tell me you said yes. I'm considering it, Carla signed back. This place is amazing. How long has it been running? 2 years, Mrs. Park signed. But it's not enough. We need someone who understands both worlds, deaf and hearing, Korean and American. Someone who can help us expand. Sujin thinks that's you. What do you think? Carla asked. Mrs. Park's smile was warm and knowing. I think my son is very good at seeing potential in people, and I think you're exactly what this program needs. What our community needs. Sujin had stepped back, letting his mother speak, but Carla could feel his attention on her, watching her reaction, assessing. How would this work? Carla signed to them both. The restaurant, the outreach program, that's 2 full-time jobs. You'd split your time, Sujin signed. 3 days at the restaurant implementing accessibility improvements, teaching staff, overhauling our service model. 2 days here, working with my mother to expand the program. Weekends off, salary and benefits starting immediately, tuition assistance once you're ready to apply to nursing programs. That's too generous. It's adequate. His signs were matter of fact. I'm asking you to build something from almost nothing. That requires fair compensation. Carla looked around the center, at students learning, at technology that gave them independence, at Mrs. Park's hopeful expression, at the chance to actually make a difference instead of just surviving. Okay, she signed. Yes, I'll do it. Mrs. Park clapped her hands silently, joy radiating from her. Sujin's expression didn't change much, but something in his eyes softened. Thank you, he signed. You won't regret this. I hope not, Carla signed back, already wondering if she just made the best or worst decision of her life. The first month was a whirlwind. Carla threw herself into both roles with desperate determination, terrified she'd prove Sujin's faith in her wrong. At the restaurant, She overhauled the entire training program, teaching staff basic sign language, implementing visual alert systems for deaf customers, creating allergy cards in multiple languages. The changes were met with resistance at first. Servers who didn't want to learn new systems, management who thought accessibility was too expensive, customers who found the changes confusing. But Carla pushed through, backed by Soo Jin's quiet authority. When people complained, he simply appeared and complaints evaporated. At the community center, she worked alongside Mrs. Park to expand programming. They added English classes for deaf immigrants, job placement services, even a small cafe where deaf baristas could gain work experience. Mrs. Park taught Carla Korean Sign Language, their hands flying as they planned and built and dreamed. And gradually, Carla began to understand Soo Jin's world. She saw the way people deferred to him, the mix of respect and fear. Noticed the security that followed him everywhere. Heard whispered conversations stop when she entered rooms. Felt eyes tracking her movements when she left the building. But she also saw unexpected kindness. Soo Jin funding medical care for a staff member's sick child. Threatening a landlord who tried to evict a deaf family. Showing up at the center to help move furniture with his sleeves rolled up and his careful distance briefly dropped. He was complicated, dangerous and protective, cold and passionate. A man who could orchestrate violence with one phone call and then sit patiently teaching an elderly deaf woman how to use a new communication device. And Carla, God help her, was falling for him. It happened gradually, then all at once. The way he signed good morning every time he saw her, even when he was on the phone or in a meeting. The way he remembered details, her brother's birthday, her favorite coffee order, the fact that she was allergic to mangoes. The way he watched her when he thought she wasn't looking, with an intensity that made her skin prickle with awareness. But he never crossed lines, never touched her unnecessarily, maintained careful professional distance even when Carla caught him staring. And that restraint, that respect, somehow made her want him more. 2 months in, everything changed. Carla was closing the restaurant on a Tuesday night. Most of the staff had already left, just her and the kitchen crew finishing cleanup. She was in the office counting receipts when the lights went out. Complete darkness. No emergency lights, no exit signs, nothing. Carla froze, heart hammering. Then she felt it. Vibrations. Footsteps. Multiple people moving through the restaurant. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking, and texted Soo Jin. Something's wrong at the restaurant. Lights out. People inside. The response came immediately. Get to the walk-in freezer. Lock yourself inside. I'm coming. Carla moved through the darkness, using her phone's flashlight, trying to stay quiet. She could see shadows near the front of the restaurant. 3, maybe 4 people. Moving deliberately. Searching. She made it to the kitchen, past the prep stations, to the massive walk-in freezer at the back. Slipped inside and pulled the door shut, engaging the interior lock. The cold bit into her immediately. She was in a thin shirt and slacks, completely unprepared. Her phone buzzed. Are you safe? Yes. In the freezer. It's cold. Stay there. 5 minutes. Can you last 5 minutes? I think so. Be strong. I'm almost there. The cold was already seeping into her bones. Carla wrapped her arms around herself, teeth starting to chatter. She could see her breath in the flashlight beam. 4 minutes. She could do 4 minutes. Through the thick freezer door, she felt, rather than heard, impacts. Vibrations that suggested violence. She pressed herself against the wall, praying Soo Jin would get there in time. Praying whoever was out there wouldn't think to check the freezer. Then the door handle rattled. Someone trying to get in. Carla's breath caught. The lock held, but for how long? She looked around desperately for a weapon, found nothing but boxes of frozen food and metal shelving. The rattling stopped. Footsteps retreating, then new footsteps. Different rhythm, heavier. More vibrations, suggesting struggle. And finally, finally, the door opened. Soo Jin stood there, suit jacket torn, a cut above his eyebrow bleeding, but whole. Behind him, 3 men lay unconscious on the kitchen floor, and his security team was zip-tying their hands. He stepped into the freezer, and Carla launched herself at him without thinking. He caught her, arms wrapping around her shaking body, and for a moment they just stood there. Then he pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders, hands moving rapidly. Are you hurt? No, just cold. What happened? Rival organization. They were looking for financial records, trying to find leverage. His jaw was tight with barely controlled fury. They shouldn't have gotten this far. Someone betrayed me. Gave them access codes. Did they hurt anyone else? The kitchen staff got out through the back. You were alone. His hands trembled slightly. You could have been killed, but I wasn't. You got here in time. Barely. He cupped her face with one hand, the other signing, I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I warned you about. The danger of being associated with me. Soo Jin, you should quit. Right now. Walk away before this gets worse. I'll give you excellent references. Help you find something safe. But Carla, I can't. His signs broke off, jaw clenching. Can't what? I can't lose you. The admission was raw, honest. And if you stay, eventually someone will hurt you to hurt me. I can't bear that thought. Carla's hands came up to still his. Then she signed slowly, deliberately. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not that easy to scare off. You should be scared. I'm scared. Of what? Of how much I care about you. His eyes held hers. Of how you've become essential in 2 months. Of how I think about you constantly. Of how I'm violating every rule I have about keeping distance from people I employ. Carla's heart was thundering now and not from fear. What are you saying? I'm saying that I'm falling for you. Have been since that first night when you helped my mother. And it's the most dangerous thing I could possibly do, because now you're a target. Now you're leverage. Now you're... Carla kissed him, cut off his signs with her mouth, rising on her toes to reach him. For a frozen second, he was still, shocked. Then his arms came around her waist, pulling her flush against him, and he kissed her back with desperate intensity. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Carla signed, I'm falling for you too. And I'm not quitting. I'm not leaving. I'm staying right here, building something with your mother, learning from you, being scared and doing it anyway. You're crazy, probably, but you like it. His laugh was startled, genuine. I do. God help me, I do. They kissed again, softer this time, and Carla felt something settle into place. This was insane, dangerous, completely inadvisable, and also completely right. Word spread quickly that Soo Jin and Carla were together. Some people in his organization were supportive. Mrs. Park was delighted, his younger sister approving, but others were less enthused. The old guard whispered that Soo Jin was distracted, weakened by a woman. Rivals saw an opportunity. The threats escalated. Carla's apartment was broken into, nothing stolen, just a message left in Korean characters she had to get translated. Leave while you can. Her car was keyed. Strange men followed her on the street until Soo Jin's security intervened. Through it all, Soo Jin became increasingly protective. He wanted her to move into his penthouse, surround herself with guards, stop working at the restaurant, but Carla refused to let fear control her life. I won't be a prisoner, she signed firmly during an argument in his office. I won't hide. That's not living. Then what do you call dying? Soo Jin shot back. Because that's what will happen if you keep taking risks. Then protect me better, but don't cage me. They fought and made up and fought again. Two stubborn people trying to build a relationship in impossible circumstances. But through it all, the connection between them deepened. Carla learned Soo Jin's tells, the way his signs got sharper when he was stressed, how he rubbed his scar when thinking hard. Soo Jin learned hers, how she hummed, though she couldn't hear it, when she was anxious, how her signs got smaller when she was hurt. And slowly, impossibly, they built something real. 4 months into their relationship, Soo Jin's world collapsed. It started with a raid. Federal agents swarming his businesses, seizing records, arresting key members of his organization. Sujin himself was taken into custody on charges of racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder. Carla found out from the news, saw Sujin in handcuffs being led from his office building, his expression blank and controlled. She called Mrs. Park immediately, found her in tears at the community center. "They're saying terrible things," Mrs. Park signed, hands trembling. "That he ordered killings, that he's been running drugs, that he's a monster." "Where is he now?" "County jail. Arraignment tomorrow." "Our lawyer is working on bail, but the charges are serious. I'm going to see him. Can you arrange it?" Mrs. Park nodded, already pulling out her phone. The jail was a nightmare of bureaucracy and hostility. Carla waited 3 hours for a 15-minute visitation window, sitting in a room that smelled like disinfectant in despair. When Sujin finally appeared behind the glass partition, her heart broke. He looked exhausted, hair disheveled, the cut above his eyebrow reopened, wearing an orange jumpsuit that seemed designed to strip away dignity. But when he saw Carla, his eyes lit with such relief that she had to blink back tears. They picked up the phone handsets, and Sujin signed with his free hand. "You shouldn't be here. This is going to get uglier." "Where else would I be?" Carla signed back. "You think I'd abandon you now?" "I'd understand if you did." "Carla, these charges are federal. If they prove even half of what they're claiming, I'm looking at decades in prison." "Are they true?" "The charges." Sujin hesitated, then signed honestly. "Some of them. Not all. The murder charge is fabricated, a rival's killing being pinned on me. But the money laundering, the racketeering, yes, that's real. So we fight the murder charge. Get you a good lawyer. Build a defense." "We?" "There is no we in this." His signs were sharp. "You need to distance yourself. Find another job. Forget about me. About us. Not happening." "Carla." "I said not happening." Her signs were fierce. "You don't get to protect me by pushing me away. We're in this together. For better or worse. We're not married. You didn't sign up for this. I signed up the moment I kissed you in that freezer. Now stop being stupid and let me help." Something in Sujin's expression cracked. He pressed his hand against the glass, and Carla matched it with her own. "I don't deserve you," he signed. "Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." The arraignment was a media circus. Carla sat in the courtroom's public seating, watching prosecutors paint Sujin as a violent criminal mastermind. The evidence was damning. Financial records, wiretaps, testimony from former associates who'd turned state's evidence. But it was the murder charge that worried Carla most. A rival gang leader killed in what prosecutors claimed was a targeted hit ordered by Sujin. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. Phone records, witness statements, forensic evidence linking Sujin's organization to the crime. Sujin stood impassive through it all, only his hands moving occasionally to sign to his lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit who seemed more interested in media attention than actual defense. When bail was denied, Carla's heart sank. Sujin was led away without looking back, and she was left in the courtroom feeling helpless and furious. She met with Mrs. Park and Sujin's siblings that afternoon, his younger sister Seo-yeon, a corporate lawyer, and his brother Min-ho, who ran the family's legitimate real estate holdings. "The lawyer is useless," Seo-yeon signed bluntly. She was fluent like her brother, clearly having learned for their mother. "He's already negotiating plea deals instead of fighting the charges. Sujin could spend 20 years in prison if we don't do something." "What can we do?" Min-ho asked, speaking while signing for his mother. "The evidence is overwhelming." "We build a better defense," Carla said. "Find witnesses who will testify to Sujin's character. Prove the murder charge is fabricated." "With what resources?" Seo-yeon asked. "The feds froze our accounts. We can barely afford the lawyer we have." "Then we fire him and defend Sujin ourselves." Everyone stared at Carla. "That's insane," Min-ho said finally. "We're not lawyers." "I am," Seo-yeon signed slowly. "Corporate law, not criminal, but I have the credentials." "And Carla, you're suggesting—" "What? That I represent my own brother?" "Why not? You love him. You know he's not a murderer. You'll fight harder than any hired gun." "It's risky. Judges don't like family members as counsel." "Then request special accommodation. Argue that Sujin's rights require someone who understands his communication needs. Carla was thinking fast, pieces clicking together. Sujin signs. That's his primary language. What if his lawyer can't communicate with him effectively? Mrs. Park's hands flew. That's brilliant. The current lawyer doesn't sign at all. Sujin has been communicating through interpreters, which means attorney-client privilege is compromised. Seo Yun's eyes lit up. That might actually work. We file a motion claiming ineffective counsel based on communication barriers. Request that I be allowed to represent him with special accommodation. Can you do it? Carla asked. Navigate a criminal trial? I'll figure it out. For Sujin, I'll figure it out. Seo Yun's jaw set in a line that reminded Carla of her brother. But I'll need help. Research, witness preparation, someone who can bridge communication gaps in court. You need an interpreter, Carla said slowly. Someone who knows Sujin, knows sign language, can translate his defense in real time. Everyone looked at Carla. No, Minho said immediately. Absolutely not. Carla, you're not trained for that. Court interpretation requires certification, experience. I have fluency, and I have something more important. I understand Sujin, how he thinks, how he communicates, what he's trying to say, even when the signs are unclear. The judge will never allow it, Seo Yun signed. You're not certified. So we get an emergency waiver. Argue that Sujin's constitutional rights require an interpreter who can effectively communicate nuanced legal concepts in his preferred sign language. That certified interpreters don't have the relationship necessary to understand context. Mrs. Park's face was alight with hope. You would do this? Risk everything to help my son? I love him, Carla signed simply. Of course I'll do this. The motion was filed the next day. The judge, a stern woman named Martinez, was skeptical but intrigued by the constitutional arguments. She granted a hearing to determine whether Seo Yun could represent her brother and whether Carla could serve as interpreter. The courtroom was tense. Sujin sat at the defense table in his orange jumpsuit, watching proceedings through an interpreter he clearly didn't trust. When Carla entered, his eyes locked on hers with such intensity, she felt it physically. Thank you, he signed when she took a seat behind the defense table. You didn't have to do this. Yes, I did, she signed back. Now stop arguing and let us save you. Seo Yun presented their argument beautifully. Sujin's primary language was sign. Effective defense required nuanced communication. Family members were necessary for cultural and linguistic understanding. She cited case law, constitutional amendments, disability rights statutes. The prosecution fought back hard, argued that Carla had no credentials, that the relationship between her and Sujin created conflict of interest, that this was a ploy to delay trial. Then Judge Martinez did something unexpected. She asked Sujin directly, Mr. Park, do you want your sister to represent you? Sujin stood, hands moving in careful signs that the court interpreter translated. Yes, Your Honor. My sister knows me, understands me, will fight for me in ways a stranger cannot. And Miss Bennett, you want her as your interpreter? Sujin's hands moved slower now, weighted with emotion. She is the only person who truly understands what I'm saying. Not just the words, but the meaning behind them. I trust her with my life. Judge Martinez studied them all for a long moment. Then, motion granted with conditions. Miss Park, you'll have co-counsel, someone with criminal trial experience to guide you. Miss Bennett, you'll work alongside a certified interpreter who will verify accuracy. But yes, I'm allowing this. Mr. Park's right to effective assistance of counsel outweighs procedural concerns. The relief was overwhelming. Sujin's hands moved rapidly. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Save it, Carla signed back. We haven't won anything yet. Now comes the hard part. The next 6 weeks were brutal. Carla basically moved into Seo Yun's office, spending 18-hour days reviewing evidence, preparing defense strategies, conducting mock examinations. She learned legal terminology and sign language, practiced translating complex concepts, studied Sujin's case until she could recite evidence in her sleep. Mrs. Park brought food, kept them caffeinated, provided emotional support. Minho handled business matters, keeping the legitimate companies running while Sujin was incarcerated. And Carla visited Sujin every chance she got, updating him, strategizing, and just being present. Their relationship deepened in that impossible time. Conversations through glass partitions and phone handsets, signing about life and death and everything between. Sujin told her about his childhood, his father's violence and love, his promise to build something better. Carla shared her fears, her dreams deferred, her determination to prove everyone who'd underestimated her wrong. When this is over, Sujin signed during one visit, assuming I don't spend the next 20 years in prison, I want to marry you. Carla's breath caught. That's the second most depressing proposal I've ever heard. Second most? The first was in a freezer while people were trying to kill us. Sujin's laugh was silent, but his shoulders shook. I'm terrible at this. But Carla, I mean it. You're it for me. The person I want beside me for whatever time I have left, whether that's 50 years or 50 days. Ask me again when you're free, Carla signed, when we're not talking through glass. The trial began on a Monday in late September. The courtroom was packed. Media, law enforcement, members of Korean organized crime on both sides of the legal spectrum, and Carla sitting at the defense table with her heart in her throat. Sujin was brought in wearing a suit his family had provided, charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, transforming him from prisoner back to the powerful man Carla knew. He sat between Seo Yan and the co-counsel Judge Martinez had appointed, but his eyes found Carla immediately. Ready? He signed. Are you? With you here? Yes. The prosecution's case was damning. They presented evidence of Sujin's criminal organization, wiretaps of him ordering violence, financial records showing money laundering, testimony from former associates detailing illegal operations. The murder charge came with forensic evidence, witness statements, and phone records supposedly proving Sujin had ordered the hit. For 2 weeks, Carla translated prosecution testimony, watching the jury's expressions grow increasingly hostile. Sujin remained impassive, but she could see the tension in how his hands rested on the table, how his jaw clenched whenever particularly damaging evidence was presented. Then came the defense's turn, and Seo-yeon was magnificent. She systematically dismantled the prosecution's timeline, showing inconsistencies in witness testimony, challenging forensic evidence, presenting Sujin's legitimate business operations as the source of his wealth. But the murder charge remained problematic. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. Sujin's organization had motive, opportunity, and the phone records showed calls between him and associates just hours before the killing. We need something more, Seo-yeon signed during a lunch recess. Something that proves Sujin didn't order that hit, because if we can break the murder charge, the rest becomes manageable. What about his phone? Carla asked. The actual phone, not just records. Could forensics show if calls were made from his phone or just appeared to be from his number? That would require the actual device, which the feds have in evidence. Seo-yeon paused. But you're right. If someone spoofed his number, made it look like he made those calls, could that be proven? Maybe, with the right expert witness. Seo-yeon was already pulling out her laptop. I know someone, forensic telecommunications specialist. If anyone can prove the calls were faked, it's him. The expert, Dr. Chen, a professor from UCLA, testified 2 days later. He'd examined Sujin's phone and the call records and found something extraordinary. Microsecond delays in call initiation that suggested number spoofing. Someone had made calls appear to originate from Sujin's phone when they actually came from elsewhere. It's sophisticated, Dr. Chen explained to the jury, requires technical expertise in specific equipment, but it's absolutely possible to make a call look like it came from someone else's phone. And these records show clear evidence of that. The prosecution fought back hard, but Dr. Chen held firm. The phone records were compromised. The murder charge's cornerstone evidence was potentially fabricated. Then Seo-yeon did something risky. She put Sujin on the stand. The courtroom went silent as Sujin rose and took the oath. Carla moved to stand beside the witness box, heart pounding. This was it. Everything depended on whether the jury would see Soo Jin as she did. Flawed but honorable, criminal but not murderer. Seo Yun began gently, establishing Soo Jin's background, his father's legacy, his efforts to transition to legitimate business, his commitment to the Korean community. Then she asked the critical question, "Did you order the murder of Lee Dong-hyun?" Soo Jin's hands moved and Carla translated, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "No, I did not. Lee and I were rivals, yes. We competed for territory, for influence, but I didn't want him dead. His death destabilized everything, started a war I'd been trying to prevent. Who did want him dead? Someone who benefited from chaos. Someone who wanted our organizations fighting instead of negotiating peace." Sujin's signs were measured, controlled. "I believe someone within my own organization betrayed me, set me up to take the fall for a murder they committed. Do you have proof?" "Not yet, but I'm asking this jury to look at the evidence objectively. The spoofed phone calls, the convenient timing, the fact that Lee's murder solved nothing for me, but created problems I'm still dealing with." The prosecution's cross-examination was brutal. They hammered Soo Jin on his criminal history, his violent reputation, his organization's activities. And Soo Jin didn't lie. He admitted to crimes, the money laundering, the illegal operations, the violence he'd ordered in the past. "But not murder," he signed and Carla translated with absolute conviction. "I've done many things I'm not proud of, things I'm working to make amends for. But I didn't kill Lee Dong-hyun, and I won't confess to something I didn't do just because it's convenient." When Soo Jin stepped down, Carla caught his eye. "You did good," she signed. "We'll see," he signed back. Closing arguments came a week later. The prosecution painted Soo Jin as a dangerous criminal who thought himself above the law. So Yan presented him as a man trying to change, unfairly targeted for a murder he didn't commit. But it was what happened during jury deliberations that changed everything. Carla was in the courthouse hallway, pacing anxiously, when Minho burst through the doors with his phone held up. "The traitor just confessed. Recorded confession. He's one of Soo Jin's lieutenants, planted by a rival organization years ago. He admitted to killing Lee and framing Soo Jin." The recording was damning. A clear confession, detailing the setup, the murder, the frame job. The judge called an emergency hearing, and within hours the murder charge was dropped. But the other charges remained: racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy. The jury returned a verdict: guilty on the lesser charges, not guilty on murder. 5 years instead of 20. A chance at a future instead of life in prison. When the verdict was read, Soo Jin closed his eyes briefly. Then his hands moved. "Thank you, all of you. You saved my life." Soo Jin was transferred to a federal facility in California, minimum security given the nature of his convictions. Carla visited every week, continuing to help run his businesses and the community center with Mrs. Park's guidance. The first year was hard. Long drives to the prison, conversations through phones and glass, the ache of being apart. But Soo Jin used the time well, took classes, worked with his lawyer to formalize the transition of his illegal operations to legitimate business, and wrote Carla letters in careful sign language diagrams. "I'm becoming the man you deserve," one letter read. "The man my father wanted me to be but never taught me how. Thank you for believing I could." Carla kept the community center growing, expanded to 3 locations, started a scholarship program for deaf students. She finally applied to nursing school, got in on her first try, her experiences running healthcare-adjacent programs, making her a compelling candidate. And she waited, through season changes and holidays and all the small moments that make up a life. Waited for Soo Jin to come home. 3 years into his sentence, Soo Jin was granted parole. Carla was there the day he was released, standing outside the prison gates in a purple dress, his favorite color on her. He walked out into sunshine, and for a moment they just stared at each other. 3 years since they'd touched. 3 years of glass barriers and phone receivers. 3 years of signing their love through impossible distances. Then Soo Jin closed the space between them and pulled Carla into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. She felt him shaking, felt tears on her neck. felt the overwhelming relief of finally being together without barriers. When he pulled back, his hands moved. I told you I'd ask properly. When I was free, when I could put a ring on your finger. He got down on one knee right there on the prison parking lot asphalt and pulled a small box from his pocket. Carla Bennett, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me, with all my flaws and all my past, and let me love you for the rest of my days? Yes, Carla signed, tears streaming down her face. 1,000 times yes. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the community center. Mrs. Park officiated. She'd gotten ordained specifically for the occasion. The vows were signed in ASL and KSL, translated for hearing guests who sat weeping at the beauty of silent promises. I promise to always see you, Carla signed, to understand not just your words but your heart, to stand beside you in darkness and light, to build a world where people like your mother, like my brother, like everyone we love, are celebrated instead of tolerated. I promise to earn your faith every day, Sujin signed back, to be the man you believed I could become, to create a legacy not of violence but of service, to love you in your language, on your terms, for as long as I breathe. They kissed as husband and wife, and the room erupted in silent applause, hands waving in the deaf community's way of cheering, a visual celebration of love that transcended sound. 5 years later, Carla stood in the newest location of Park Community Center, a massive facility in downtown LA, offering everything from deaf education to job training to healthcare services. She'd finished nursing school, now ran the center's medical clinic, and was in the process of developing a model that other cities were starting to adopt. Sujin had kept his promise. He'd transformed his family's operations entirely, turning criminal enterprises into legitimate businesses that employed hundreds and gave back to the community his father had once exploited. The transition hadn't been easy. Some former associates felt betrayed. Rivals saw weakness. But Sujin had navigated it all with the same strategic mind that had once made him dangerous. Now he was dangerous in a different way. A philanthropist and advocate whose influence opened doors for deaf and disabled communities across California. Mrs. Park, at 75, still ran the education programs, still taught embroidery and painting, still treated Carla like the daughter she'd gained. Marcus visited from Oakland regularly, having found community and acceptance in the centers his sister had helped build. And on Friday evenings, without fail, Carla and Sujin closed the restaurant early and had dinner in booth 7, the same booth where Carla had first met Mrs. Park, where she'd stopped to help when no one else would, where everything had changed. What are you thinking about? Sujin signed, reaching across the table to take her hand. That night, the first time I saw your mother struggling, how easily I could have walked past, how different everything would be if I had. But you didn't. You stopped. You saw. You helped. His thumb traced circles on her palm. That's who you are, Carla. The person who stops, who sees, who helps. It's why I fell for you. Why I'll love you until I die. Even though I got you arrested and sent to prison, especially because of that. His signs were serious despite the light tone. You saved my life, not just in court. You saved my soul, made me want to be better, showed me a different way forward. I'd go through it all again if it meant ending up here, with you. Their daughter ran up then, 4 years old, deaf like her grandmother, with Sujin's eyes and Carla's smile. Her hands flew in rapid ASL. Mama, Halmione says I can help make kimchi tomorrow. Can I? Please. If you promise to wash your hands properly, Carla signed back. Last time you got gochugaru everywhere. I promise. I'll be so careful. The little girl, they'd named her Jiwoo after Sujin's sister, bounced excitedly before running back to Mrs. Park, who was teaching a cooking class in the restaurant's demonstration kitchen. Sujin watched his daughter go, expression soft with love. She's so much like my sister. That same fearlessness. That joy in everything. Your sister would have adored her. She would have adored you. His hands moved gently. would have loved that our daughter grows up in a world where her deafness is celebrated, where she has role models and community, and a mother who speaks her language fluently. And a father who does the same, Carla added. Don't sell yourself short. You're an incredible dad. I'm trying. His signs carried weight, trying to give her what my father never gave me: safety, stability, a legacy she can be proud of instead of ashamed. You're succeeding. Carla squeezed his hand. Look around, Sujin. This restaurant, these centers, the programs, the lives we've changed. That's your legacy now. Not violence, not crime. This. Mrs. Park appeared then, Ji-woo on her hip, signing rapidly. We need more people for the cooking class. It's getting too popular. Maybe we should offer it twice a week. That's a good problem to have, Sujin signed back. We'll figure it out. Your daughter wants to stay with me tonight, Mrs. Park continued. Something about a sleepover and making pageant for breakfast. I said yes, but wanted to check with you first. Carla and Sujin exchanged glances. A night alone, rare and precious with their busy lives. If you're sure it's not too much trouble, Carla signed. Trouble? She's my joy. Mrs. Park kissed Ji-woo's forehead. Go home. Rest. Enjoy each other. You both work too hard. They didn't argue. 20 minutes later, they were driving through LA as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Sujin drove with one hand, the other resting on Carla's thigh. Comfortable silence between them. At their home, a renovated brownstone in Koreatown that balanced modern accessibility with traditional Korean design, they moved through their evening routine with practiced ease. Dinner prep together, catching up on the day's events in sign, comfortable in the rhythm they'd built over 8 years together. Later, as they lay in bed, Carla traced the tattoo on Sujin's ribs, Korean characters he'd gotten after his release from prison. What does it say again? She signed with one hand. Second chances are earned, not given. His hand covered hers. A reminder that the life I have now, you, Ji-woo, the work we do, isn't something I deserved. It's something I had to prove myself worthy of. You did more than prove yourself. You transformed yourself. We transformed each other. He rolled to face her, eyes serious. Before you, I was trapped in my father's legacy. After you, I found my own path. That's not just personal growth, Carla. That's salvation. Dramatic, she signed with a slight smile. Accurate. He kissed her softly. You saved me. In that courtroom, yes. But more importantly, you saved me from becoming the worst version of myself, from accepting that violence and power were the only things I could be good at. You saved me too, Carla signed. Gave me purpose beyond just surviving. Showed me I could build something meaningful. That my brother's struggles, my experiences, all of it could become fuel for change instead of just pain. So we saved each other. We did. They made love slowly, tenderly, hands moving in sign language between kisses, silent declarations of love and need and gratitude. And afterward, tangled together in the darkness, Carla thought about the impossible journey that had brought them here. From a struggling waitress trying to save money for nursing school to the director of a thriving community health program. From a criminal organization's leader to a respected philanthropist changing policy at the state level. From two people who shouldn't have worked on paper to partners who'd built something extraordinary. What are you thinking about? Sujin signed, always attuned to her. That day, when I helped your mother order bibimbap, how I almost didn't stop. How I almost just let Jeremy handle it. But you did stop. I did. And my entire life changed. Our lives changed. Your mother's life changed. How many other lives have changed because of that one moment of choosing to see someone who was invisible? Thousands, Sujin signed. Every person who comes through our centers, every deaf kid who grows up with access to education and opportunity, every family who doesn't have to struggle alone. All because you stopped. All because you saw my mother as a person worth helping. All because your mother gave me a chance. Saw something in me I didn't see in myself. She has good instincts. His signs carried affection and humor. Terrible taste in dramas. She watches the most ridiculous shows. but excellent instincts about people. Carla laughed silently, feeling the vibration in her chest. Then she signed, "Do you ever regret it? Everything that happened? Prison, the trial, the loss of power?" Sujin considered carefully before responding. "I regret the things I did that led to it. The violence I ordered, the lines I crossed, the way I used fear to build power. But the consequences? No. Prison gave me time to think, to change, to become someone different. The trial brought you into my life as more than just someone I cared about. It made you my defender, my partner, the person who'd fight for me even when I was guilty. You weren't guilty of murder, but I was guilty of many other things, and you fought for me anyway. Saw past the criminal to the man trying to be better. That's love, Carla. Real, complicated, imperfect love. Not the fairy tale version, the kind that says, I see your darkness and I'm staying anyway. I see your light too, she signed. The man who learned sign language for his sister, who built a community center in her memory, who treats his mother with such tenderness, who's raising a deaf daughter to be proud of who she is. That's the man I fell for. That's the man I married. Both versions are me, Sujin signed, the criminal and the philanthropist, the violent enforcer and the gentle father. I'm learning to accept that both truths can exist, that I can acknowledge my past without being defined by it. That's wisdom, Carla signed. Hard won, but wisdom. They lay in comfortable silence for a while, just existing together. Then Sujin signed, My parole officer visited today. Final check-in. As of next month, I'm officially done. No more monitoring, no more restrictions. Completely free. That's amazing. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I wanted to save it. Make it special. His hands moved with barely contained excitement. Carla, we can travel now. Take Jiwoo to Korea. Show her where her heritage comes from. Visit your family in Oakland without me having to get permission. Just live, without the shadow of my past constantly hovering. We're already living, Carla signed gently. But yes, it'll be nice to do it without restrictions. There's something else. Sujin sat up slightly, and Carla could see nervousness in his signs. I've been offered a position, advisory role with the California Council for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Individuals. They want someone with business expertise and community connections to help shape accessibility policy. Sujin, that's incredible. Why do you look worried? Because it's a government position. They do a full background check. My criminal record would be public, scrutinized. It could hurt you, hurt our family, hurt the centers if the media decides to make it a story. Or, Carla signed firmly, it could show that people can change. That redemption is real. That someone who made mistakes can still contribute something valuable to society. Your story, our story, could give hope to people who think their past defines their future. He took the job. 3 months later, Sujin was sworn in as a policy advisor. The media did cover it. There were headlines about the reform gang leader and think pieces about criminal justice reform. Some people were critical, questioned whether someone with his background should influence policy. But the deaf community rallied behind him. Hundreds of testimonials about how park community centers had changed lives, how Sujin's work had created opportunities where none existed before, how his unique perspective, someone who'd been marginalized by the criminal justice system, made him exactly the right person for the role. Mrs. Park gave an interview in sign language, translated for a major news outlet. My son made mistakes. He admits that. But he also built something beautiful from his mistakes, programs that have helped thousands of deaf people access education, employment, healthcare. Judge him by what he's building, not just by what he was. Carla was interviewed too. She spoke about meeting Sujin, about the trial, about watching him transform. People want redemption stories to be simple, she said while signing. Good person does bad thing, feels sorry, becomes good again. But real redemption is complicated. It's choosing to be better every single day, even when it's hard. Even when your past keeps trying to drag you back. Sujin does that. He's still doing that. That's why I trust him with policy work, because he understands what it means to be written off by society. The controversy died down eventually, replaced by results. Soo Jin's first major policy initiative, requiring all state-funded hospitals to have ASL-fluent staff in proper accommodations for deaf patients, passed with bipartisan support. The changes he pushed for made California a national model for disability accessibility. And life continued. Beautiful, complicated, imperfect life. 10 years after that night in the restaurant, Carla stood on a stage at UCLA Medical Center, accepting an award for innovative community healthcare programs. The room was full: colleagues, friends, family, students from the nursing program she'd graduated from, people whose lives had been changed by the park community centers. She gave her acceptance speech in sign language, with voice interpretation for hearing attendees. I used to think success meant avoiding failure, meant playing it safe, keeping my head down, not drawing attention. But I learned something important from the people in this room and the people who couldn't be here tonight. Real success means showing up when it would be easier to walk away. 10 years ago, I was a waitress trying to survive in a city that felt too big, too expensive, too overwhelming. I had dreams but no clear path to reach them. Then I met a woman who needed help, a deaf woman trying to order food in a restaurant where no one understood her. I could have walked away. Should have, probably. I was busy, overwhelmed, barely keeping my own life together. But I stopped. I helped. And that moment changed everything. It led me to this work, to this community, to a life I couldn't have imagined. It taught me that we're all just one choice away from a completely different future. One moment of seeing someone else's struggle and choosing to help instead of walking past. She found Soo Jin in the audience, sitting next to his mother and their daughter. Now 7 years old, Ji-woo was signing enthusiastically to Mrs. Park, probably giving her own interpretation of what Mama was saying. Someone once told me that love isn't about finding perfect people, it's about seeing imperfect people perfectly, understanding their flaws and choosing them anyway. That's what this work is too. Seeing patients who get overlooked, communities that get ignored, and choosing them anyway. Not because it's easy or profitable or safe, but because it's right. So to everyone here tonight, keep stopping, keep seeing, keep choosing the harder path of compassion over the easier path of indifference. You never know whose life you'll change, including your own. The applause was thunderous, both audible clapping and the visual waving of hands that the deaf community used. Carla stepped off the stage and was immediately engulfed by her family. "I'm so proud of you," Soo Jin signed, eyes bright with emotion. "Look at everything you've built, everything you've become." "We've become," Carla corrected. "None of this happens without you, without your mother, without all of us working together." Still, he signed. "You're magnificent, and I'm the luckiest man alive." Ji-woo tugged on Carla's dress. "Mama, when I grow up, I want to help people like you do, and like Halmione does, and like Appa does. Can I?" "You can do anything you want," Carla signed back, "as long as you remember to stop when someone needs help, to see when others don't, to choose kindness even when it's hard. I will. I promise." Mrs. Park pulled them all into a group embrace, her signs emotional when she finally released them. "Look at what we built. From one moment of kindness in a restaurant. Look at all of this." And Carla did look. At the awards and recognition, yes. But more importantly, at her family, found and chosen and fought for. At Soo Jin, the criminal who'd become a crusader for justice. At Mrs. Park, whose struggle had sparked a movement. At Ji-woo, growing up in a world that celebrated her instead of marginalizing her. At everything they'd built from broken pieces. That night, back home after the ceremony, Carla found Soo Jin in Ji-woo's room. Their daughter was asleep, but he was sitting beside her bed, just watching her breathe. Carla leaned against the doorframe, not wanting to interrupt, but Soo Jin sensed her presence. He always did. Looked up and signed, "I was thinking about my sister, wishing she could meet Ji-woo. See what we built in her memory." Carla crossed to him, settled beside him on the floor. "She knows. Somehow." somewhere. She knows. You think? I know. Carla took his hand. Because everything good in your life stems from the love you had for her. The sign language you learned, the empathy you developed, the determination to honor her memory. That all led you to your mother that night in the restaurant. Which led you to me. Which led to Jiwoo. It's all connected. I like that idea. That she's still guiding me somehow. She is. Through you. Through the work you do in her name. Through the way you're raising your daughter to be proud of who she is. Carla's hands moved gently. Ji-won's legacy isn't just the centers or the programs. It's the ripple effect of love. One person teaching another to see differently, who teaches another, who teaches another. Infinite connection. Sujin was quiet for a long moment. Then, do you ever regret it? Everything we've been through? The danger? The trial? The years of struggle? Never, Carla signed without hesitation. I regret that you had to suffer, that we lost time to your incarceration, that our journey was so hard. But regret choosing you? Choosing this life? Never. Not for a second. Even knowing what you know now? All my flaws, all my past sins, all the complications I brought into your life, especially knowing all of that. Her signs were fierce, because I didn't fall in love with some perfect fairy tale man. I fell in love with you. Complicated, flawed, trying his best you. The man who learned sign language for his sister. Who prosecutes himself harder than any judge could. Who spent a decade proving he's more than his worst moment. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. Carla cupped his face with one hand, signing with the other. You've earned me. Every day you earn me. By being a good father, a good husband, a good man. By choosing to build instead of destroy. By loving me in my language, on my terms, without ever asking me to be anything other than exactly who I am. He kissed her palm, then signed, I love you, more than I have words in any language to express. I love you too. Now come to bed. Tomorrow's Saturday. Jiwoo's going to wake us up at dawn wanting to make pancakes. How do you know? Because she does every Saturday, and because she's your daughter. Stubborn, determined, impossible to resist. They stood, taking one last look at their sleeping daughter. Then hand in hand, they walked to their bedroom, to their life, to the quiet, beautiful chaos they'd created together. The sun rose over Los Angeles, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. In a house in Koreatown, a family stirred awake. A little girl padded to her parents' room, climbed onto their bed, and began signing enthusiastically about pancakes, and maybe could they have chocolate chips this time? In a community center across town, an elderly woman opened the doors for another day of classes, her hands moving in greeting to students who streamed in. Deaf and hearing, Korean and every other ethnicity, all coming together to learn and grow and build connection. In a small clinic attached to the center, nurses arrived for their shifts, many of them graduates of Carla's training program, learning to see patients as people first, diagnoses second. And in a home where love was spoken in sign language, where redemption was earned daily, where a criminal and a waitress had built something beautiful from broken pieces, breakfast was being made with laughter and flower fights and the kind of chaotic joy that defined real life. No one understood the order of the Korean Mafia boss's mute mother that night 10 years ago. No one except a black waitress who chose to stop, to see, to help. And from that one moment of compassion, a universe had expanded. Lives changed. Futures redirected. Love discovered in the most unlikely places. Because that's how it works, isn't it? Real change, real love, real transformation. It starts with someone choosing to see another person struggle and saying, I can help with that. Just one person, one moment, one choice to stop walking past. Everything else follows.